Right now, at this hour in Sicily, G7 leaders are arriving in pretty much the past 55 to 65 minutes for a lavish meal, followed by a concert from the La Scala Philharmonic Orchestra. However, the real business continues outside the dining hall. You know how this goes. The deal-making is in the hallway. Also in the past hour, White House Chief Economic Advisor Gary Cohn telling reporters the administration may consider even tougher, not looser sanctions on Russia. Now, earlier this morning, the president touched down in Sicily, and he tweeted, quote, "Just arrived in Italy for the G7. Trip has been very successful. We made and saved the USA many billions of dollars and millions of jobs." It's a journey that has also seen the president fully embracing the head of state role. He has met with the Saudis, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas, and Pope Francis. In spite of all these very presidential meetings, his approval ratings continue to fall. Now just 40% in the latest Fox News poll, down from 45% in April. And good doctors say get a second opinion. Here's the second opinion. Gallup tracking number just slightly higher at 41% approval rating. Could the ongoing Russia controversy and other domestic political challenges be overshadowing everything else the administration is getting done? And why is that even fair? We're joined now by Republican strategist and Fox News contributor Ed Rollins and former Undersecretary of State for Economic Affairs under the Obama administration, Bob Hormats. Ed Rollins, fair or not fair?
It's not fair. I mean, he's solid with his base. That's what his base is. I thought he had an extraordinary week. This is a measurement where you go meet these foreign leaders and they sort of look at you in the eye and they make a judgment. They don't know him. All the rest of the G7 pretty much know each other. And I think he had an extraordinary week. I think he basically performed very, very well. I think that's part of what's reflected in the stock market. He looked like a leader. He acted like a leader. He sent some very significant messages to NATO. Basically, pay your share. I have to ask my Americans to give up certain things so we can add to the defense budget. You need to basically alter your premise, and I think he comes back with an A- at minimum, probably an A+ in some places.
Well, everybody has a perception here, Bob, and the perception is, ooh, there's going to be tension between President Trump and Theresa May because, of course, there was some spilling of highly secretive intelligence regarding the Manchester bombing, and it has been traced to the U.S. Rex Tillerson, Secretary of State, has already apologized for it, but there was a face-to-face meeting between Theresa May and President Trump, and that apparently did not come up. They talked Brexit, they talked security, they talked trade. So I think that there are things that people are projecting into, oh, here's what's going to happen, and then it doesn't.
That's correct. They have bigger issues to deal with. I think in these summits, and I was the Sherpa or the planner or the note-taker for the first 7 of these, starting with Rambouillet, and there was a pattern, and that is they always have these domestic issues or bilateral issues that come up from time to time, but they tend at these summits to focus on higher level, more important issues. They only have a limited amount of time, so they want to make progress on areas where they can make progress, not go back to old differences. Well,
one of the problems, perhaps, is the president himself. You know, there's some unforced errors, and there's this shove heard around the world, and a lot of people are talking about the fact that, and you can see it there, President Trump pushed ahead of the Montenegro prime minister. In fact, we could show it again so our viewers can see it, because it happened rather quickly. We could take it full screen. Duško Marković is the white-haired gentleman, and you see, looking a little agitated, Donald Trump shoves him aside, pushes him aside. I think we got a tight shot of his hand actually doing it. But interestingly, Ed, that Prime Minister of Montenegro said, didn't bother me. In fact, I'm appreciative Donald Trump supported Montenegro's application and acceptance into NATO.
That's all that counts. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, Trump doesn't know these people, probably didn't know who he was. It wasn't like he pushed Mrs. Merkel down.
Well, if he's there, he's one of the leaders of a country.
He's definitely one of the leaders, and he's performed like a leader, and I think that's the critical thing here, as I said earlier, and he wouldn't do it again. I think the key thing is when you sit down at the table with these people, as Bob can tell you, having set a lot of these up, and I haven't been to a few of them, it's a measurement. They look at each other, they basically sort of make judgments. Who's strong here? The United States steps into any arena, and we're the strongest nation in the world. Economically, we're the strongest nation, militarily, all of which are very important to these other countries.
Bob, is there anything that happened on the trip that will give President Trump more momentum than any other of the events? People felt that the meeting with Netanyahu was very, very important, and then meeting with Mahmoud Abbas.
Well, I do think that the trip to Saudi Arabia and meeting with those Muslim leaders was very important because it gave the United States a stronger position vis-a-vis Russia in the region, because he can organize a group of Sunni Arabs to help support American policy if he provides the kind of support they want. And also he worked well with Netanyahu. That helps a lot. I don't think there were any breakthroughs, but I think it showed him in a good light in the Islamic world that helped correct some of the images that they'd had in the past. And Ed's right. They tend to deal with bigger issues. I think he shouldn't have pushed anyone at that meeting, the NATO meeting. It wasn't good for him to do that. Pushing people around is not a good thing to do anywhere. But I think the Prime Minister of Montenegro had bigger fish to fry. He wasn't going to dwell on that issue because the United States support is needed for their security. So, of course, he's going to push that aside as an issue and move on to the bigger issues.
Well, Charlie Gasparino pushes me aside a lot, so maybe I'll tell him what you said. One quick question, and I'll end with Ed. When the president returns here to the United States, he is going to see more deeply that his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, is now one of the focuses of this Russia investigation. What does that do?
Well, first of all, it has to get cleared up very quickly, and Jared's the only one who can clear it up. He can talk in terms of who he met with and why he met with them. And once people know that and there's no involvement of any illicitness, then I think you move on. The critical thing, though, is someone who's important to the president and his daughter, who both play key roles in that White House. You don't want them distracted by this. The bottom line here is these investigations are going to go on for a long time, but you can't have someone in the significant role that they're in the White House be a center of it. And I don't think at the end of the day, I don't think they showed bad judgment. I don't think they've done anything at this point in time, and they need to get it behind them real quick.
Great to have two heavyweights in the political world, Ed Rollins and Bob Hormats. Great to see you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.